And because my father-in-law was a blacksmith, and he could even weld aluminum and stuff, he didn't have to serve in the army. He was used as a craftsman. And he had a blacksmith shop back home in Serbia, but he wanted to go back home so bad. And after the war was over, they were sending trains that some people were allowed to go back home. But what we didn't know was, if we hadn't stayed in Austria, our train would have made it to Croatia. They captured the people that were coming in and put them in starvation camps. And only one person I know of escaped over the Alps coming into Austria and told us about what was happening. So God used, you think it was a horrible thing that the railroad bridge was bombed and we were standing there out there for 3 weeks without food or anything. But you know what God says? That he works all things together for good to them that love God. And so that's how we stayed in Austria. And through that, we were able to come to America. How God orchestrated all that. Can you see that? Yeah. So Billy Graham's crusade, we were in the choir every night, and every day I remember always, we used to call it glory box. Goosebumps. Watching all those people come forward. It was just totally amazing to me. But my future husband, he was also in the choir, and he would escort me home on the subway after the meetings. And that's what started our dating. Yeah. At the Billy Graham Crusade. At the Billy Graham Crusade, yes. Well, I mean, we knew each other in church, but we went together every day, and he escorted me home on the subway. And then in 1959, we got married then. And we came to America before his family came. We came at the end of 1956, and his family came in February of 1957, and they came to our church, and so we knew each other. But through the Billy Graham Crusade, he was taking me home every day, so we got to meet that. We had, after we got married, he went to the Army. That's another thing that in those days, immigrants had to sign when they were men. Women didn't have to do it, but men had to sign that they will serve in the armed forces. And he was proud to do so because we were so happy to be in the United States. I don't know if you children realize how blessed you are to be in this country. You probably will learn about a lot of conditions that are happening, and even to Christians in other countries. But you have church to go to. You have Sunday school to go to. You have the Word of God preached on the pulpit and on TV and on radio. I tell you what, if you didn't have that before, you can only imagine how I felt after we came here, and we were so blessed with all that. So my husband and I, after he came out from the Army, he went to serve in the Army for two years. And after that, I think 4 years in the Army Reserves. But we had our children. I had a daughter and then a little boy, my son. And they were just, I shared with them all this, not to tell you guys or to tell them a sob story, but to tell them, hey, treasure each mouthful of food that you get. Because I remember what it was like to be hungry. Treasure your parents supplying for you what you need, because we didn't have that, you see. So I wanted to see if you have any kind of questions for me. Yes.
So your mother married the tailor, is that?
Yes.
That's okay.
Yeah. That's right. And then they had 2 more girls, so we're six girls when we came to America.
So, and I'm sorry, I missed the very first part. So your father was drafted into the German army?
Yes.
Is that correct?
Because he was of German descent, yes. I think Croatia was on the German side as far as the government was concerned, but the people themselves, the partisans and all, they all fought against Hitler, against the the Nazis, you know. Not all German people were Nazis. Nazis was a party like we call Democrats or Republicans or whatever. But we were all called Nazis, even as children. When we came, one of my workplaces there were some Jewish people who had parents that survived the Holocaust or died in the concentration camps, and when they heard Lydia and I talk in German, they spit at us. Yeah. And we were only, like I said, you saw, I was 4 years old, you know, when we left. So my mom did not agree with Hitler at all, because he closed all church, Baptist church, anything, except for the Catholic and the Lutheran church. He didn't dare close them, but all the other churches were closed. And Mom would hide the Jewish people. She had a lot of customers that she was a seamstress, and so she had worked with a lot of Jewish people, and she would hide them. And that, if you ever get a chance to read The Hiding Place from Corrie ten Boom, yeah. So God took care of us all through those years, and I'm so thankful that we were able to come to the United States. Yes.
Do you still have family in Croatia?
Not in Croatia, but in Austria. My mom's youngest brother is still there. He just turned 91, and they had one daughter. And so after Oscar retired, my husband, he took an early retirement from M&M Mars. You know what M&M candies are? Well, he made them. At least he was working in that place. He was able to go and take an early retirement. We came down here. How God led us to Georgia is another thing. I don't know how much time I got.
About 5 or 7 more
5 minutes? Okay. Well, my sisters, 4 of my 5 sisters live down in Florida. And my in-laws also went down to Florida. So my husband got sick and tired of going to Florida all the time on his vacation. So we said, well, my sister and brother-in-law, Lydia and Eberhard, they would come up from South Florida, and we would come down from New Jersey and meet over here. We thought October would be nice. It's a nice color, you know, and everything. None of us thought of the Oktoberfest, so we didn't make any reservations. And they all only knew about Helen. You know, because right. And so they came a night before. We were supposed to leave the next morning to come and meet them here. They came up here and they found out there's no place to stay because of the Oktoberfest. So they called us up and said, don't bother coming because we don't have any reservations. And so they went through Hawaii to look for former neighbors of theirs in Valhalla. And they, on their way back, it was a Sunday morning, they stopped at a Georgia Mountain restaurant, and here again you can see God's hand in it, because they asked the hostess in the Georgia Mountain restaurant if she can recommend a good gospel preaching church. And she was not a member of McConnell, but she said, it's right up there, that's a good church. So they went there, and guess who was ushering? A real estate guy. Gene Brumbaugh and Henrietta, yes. And they took Lydia and Eberhard out on the lake and showed them the area, and Henrietta handled rentals, so we made a reservation for the next May, and that's how we came down here and said, oh, this is God's country. You know, being in Austria, living in Austria, even though we were in refugee camps, everybody thought, oh, you know how to ski coming from Austria, right? Well, we didn't have food enough to eat, much less have skis. So, but, so we just loved the mountains. And after my husband retired, we built our own house here. And then we went back home to Austria with my uncle and aunt, and they were mountain climbers with rappelling and everything. We never did that, but they knew. And they took us camping all the way to Greece and to Hungary. We saw more of Austria in our visits than I ever did in those 12 years that we lived in Austria, you know. But, and that was the first time I set foot back in Croatia. By that time, Croatia was already independent, and you're studying that right now, right? Yeah. Yes.
You talked about giving to the next refugee after, you were taken care of and you did that. And
Yeah.
how long did you do that for? Like, how was that a continuous process of your life? And is that still kind of like a heartstring for you?
I think I'm trying to think of what year it kind of slowed down. But right after the war, it was a constant. I don't know how many people they sponsored for to come. I know of a family with 6 kids that came a few weeks before we did. And so that's why they had trouble finding a place for us to stay,
What church was it?
Baptist church it was a German-speaking Baptist church in Manhattan. And so they did find us a place because it cost $60 a month just for rent, and then we had to pay for the heating and everything else, and it was quite expensive for us. So everybody was looking for what they call super jobs, where they would take care of a building, they would get rent-free, and they would wash down the stairs, then stoke at that time they had coal stoves, furnaces, and they had to be stoked with coals and shoveled in and all that. So once we got that, it was easier for us, But we were still in the heart of Manhattan. Yeah.
And now she and her 2 sisters sing in our choir. So there's 3 of them that sing in our choir, and she teaches Sunday school every Sunday.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
She's
awesome.
passing on.
You don't sound like you have a New Jersey accent at all.
Pardon?
You don't sound like you have a New Jersey accent at all.
No, I think I kept some of my German accent. But the younger sisters that did go to school here, they don't have an accent. My oldest sister and I, we still have some accent.
Did you go to any school? Did you ever wind up going to any high school or school? And so how many years were you in the refugee camp, like 6 or?
8 out of the 12 years. Yes.
8 years.
Uh-huh.
So y'all didn't do any schooling during that time?
Well, yes, they had school in the refugee camp. Yes. Uh-huh. Yeah. But our German was an accent from down, like, I don't know if accent is the word.
Yeah, dialect?
Dialect, thank you. Yeah. We had a different dialect than the high-class German, so that it was difficult for us, and we were always corrected in the correct German. Yes?
Can you still speak German?
Yes.
You can?
Yeah.
Do your sisters, do y'all speak in German to each other?
Sometimes. When we can't find the English word, we say in German. And I still do math better in German than I do in English, because I learned it as a child, Yeah. Well, I hope you can see that God can take care of you in any situation. You can trust Him the way He trusted, the way He took care of us. And He made out of a bad situation something good, that we were able to come here in the United States. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The little kids choir sang at church on Sunday. There were 20 kids. And I was saying something to Cooper, how great I thought it sounded. And he goes, you know what made it sound the most beautiful was when everybody's voice was all together and it sounded like one voice.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about just the different people from different cultures who were praising God. And
Absolutely.
we come together, we're not trying to outdo the other one, but we're working
That's
together.
right. Yes.
Beautiful unity.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. Yeah, well, thank you for allowing me to come and share with you. There's so much more. My children always kept saying, Mama, please write everything down, because we want to know your history. And so I started typing it into the computer, and then it got about 27 pages on the computer, because in detail. And even that is not all of it, But just a fact, one of the things I wanted to tell you was when I was 9 years old, the Red Cross came and took some children that were undernourished to Switzerland. Now, Switzerland was a neutral country. They did not have war, but they had pity on the refugee children. And I was picked 1 out of 2 children in the whole school. And I got into a family. There, too, I was supposed to go to the French-speaking part of Switzerland. Switzerland is French, Italian, German, and Romano, I think, is the 3rd one, but the 4th one. But somehow we got all together into Zurich, and that's where we were distributed. And the one that I was supposed to go to the French-speaking one, for some reason, the Lord had it in mind to get me into the German one. So the family that expected a little boy, they sent their daughter over there to pick up that boy, because that was Zurich was the distribution place, and they got me. And up till maybe 5 years ago, I was still in contact with them. The daughter passed away about 5 years ago, but until then, they were wonderful, that family. I was the refugee child that belonged to the whole town. They would, when they heard I had 5 more sisters back home in the refugee camp, they gathered clothing and bedding. We were sleeping on straw mattresses in a single bed, one this way, one that way, because we, you know, in the refugee camp, our just a single bed. Yeah, we were smelling each other's feet. But when they found out the way we lived, I guess I was Gabby, you know, told them about it. They sent home to my family not only chocolate and all kinds of stuff, but the necessary things, clothing and bedding and stuff. 25 kilograms, which is about 50 pounds package. But the whole town had collected to send it home. And they would send me on errands to the bakery every morning to pick up, and they would give me a little tip, you know, and I would save that and bring it home. Oh, it was wonderful. God really had his hands on me, and I just praise him for it. Thank you for letting me.
Thank you so much.
How long were you there in Switzerland?
Pardon?
How long did you stay in Switzerland with that family?
3 months. Yeah, for 3 months, and then the